Welcome to Fatherhood Field Notes podcast, where I interview incredible fathers, gaining wisdom from their stories for you and I to grow in our own craft of fatherhood. I'm your guide, Ned Schaut, father to 5 kiddos, currently ages 12 to 19, and husband to my rad wife, Sarah, working on our 21st year of marriage. So yes, I am in the thick of it. I am in this with you, working daily to rebel against the low expectations for fathers and create a world where fathers know who they are as they show up for their families. You and I have the greatest opportunity to impact our world through the way we embrace our fatherhood role. This episode is brought to you by The Adventure of Fatherhood, helping men discover their powerful fatherhood role and build their fatherhood skills. The role of the father is to serve, guide, steward, protect, and of course, find joy and have fun in the messiness of it all. Today's guest is my friend, Daniel Lehmann. He is a surfer, hunter, leader in the community, a husband, and a loving and intentional father. Our conversation is powerful. I had lots of gold nuggets that I'm taking away to implement in my own life. Enjoy meeting another incredible father. All right, my friend, Daniel, welcome to Fatherhood Field Notes. How you feeling today?
Feeling good. It's good to be here.
Heck yeah. I've been looking forward to this, and it is such a nice break from the day job to come and pause and talk fatherhood. So my first question right out the gate for you. How old do you find yourself today?
How old do I find myself? Older than I am, maybe.
In what ways?
No, I'm 40. I'm 46 and 46 young for sure.
40. So mentally, how do you feel?
Mentally, how do I feel? A little older than that. We can get into that a little bit later, but I've had a little health issues lately. I had a head injury at the beginning of this year, so I'm still sort of recovering from that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll talk about it. How many years you been married?
25 years.
Dang, dude, that's so awesome. Dude, you just hit 25 years this year. We won't put you on the spot and ask for the date. How many kiddos do you guys have?
4 kids, 22-year-old, 2 boys, 2 girls, 22-year-old, 19-year-old, 18, and 14.
So, so you're a little ahead of me. And so ours are 12 to 19. And just the other day, Sarah and I were hugging in the kitchen. And basically she hugged me, just like buried her head into my chest. And it's like, people said that when they were toddlers, it was hard. So the question is, when does it get easier?
Well, I have 2 that are out of the house, so that makes it easier when they're
It does. Oh, so it does make it easier. Does it make the worrying less or what?
well, in my experience, the boys are different than the girls. So my 18-year-old girl, she's just about to leave. She just graduated high school, so she's about to leave, and I don't want her to leave. She's in the other bedroom. I don't want you to leave. But my 2 boys, I think there's something special with men that they need that adventure. They need to get out of the house. They need to experience life and be outside of the home, and I've really seen my boys thrive since they've been out of the house, actually, since they've been nervous and had to pay their own bills. And um, so in that way, it's easier because I'm less worried about them because I'm seeing that the challenges that they're facing are actually encouraging growth. So I'm worrying less. When they were in the house, I was worrying a ton because I was worrying about the friends that they're hanging out with and the mistakes they're going to be making and all that kind of stuff. Now that they're out of the house, they're actually doing much better. So I don't, uh, girls, I'm yet to cross that bridge. So
Yeah. And maybe that's the difference too. It's like, my oldest is a girl and Sarah just took her back to Boise State. They left 2 days ago or whatever. There's like this different feeling of like, I'm now in this window. It's not that I hope they get married soon. And in my mind, I think it's going to be easier, but I don't know. I don't know. Weird little stage. Okay, you guys live here in Kona, and then what is it that you do for a living to feed the family? So I love and hate this question. Like, here's why I ask it. Most men ask what you do because we're sizing each other up. The reason why I ask the question is if you are running a Fortune 500 company, or you are a manager at Home Depot, when you have a 16-year-old girl, you have a 16-year-old girl. When your son turns 18, your son turns 18. So in a lot of ways, this whole fatherhood thing is a level playing field. So with that in mind, what is it that you do for a living to feed the family?
I'm a pastor, full-time pastor, Livingstone's Church here in Kona.
Love it, dude. And that's where we go to church. And And I know we would have had a conversation at some point, but there was a message you gave a few weeks, months ago that really stayed with me, and it's what led me to reach out because I feel like it's a message dad needs to hear. Dads need to hear. Yeah. So I'm gonna ask a couple other just like rando questions, and then we'll get into that, and then to whatever level you want to talk about the health stuff, we'll talk about that. So, in your opinion, what is the role of the father?
The role of the father to train your kids up in the way of the Lord. First and foremost, I learned how to be a father because of my heavenly father. I want to reflect him, and so my first and foremost role as a father is to train my kids up in the Lord.
Man, it's good, and so it's interesting. Like I had a guy on here the other day who's probably not really a believer to the extent whatever that means. But one of the questions I've been asking is like, how do you pass your faith to your kids? And it's so funny because so many of us are like, we got to pass our wealth, we got to pass our core values. But it's like, how do you disconnect those two things or anything from your faith? Like, I know who I am. And we live in a weird world where it's kind of like, believe what you want to believe and don't push your beliefs on your kids. But it's like, I'm not going to let my kid decide at 3 or 4 or 5 if they should brush their teeth or not. I'm kind of like, you got to brush your teeth. So talk to me about your thoughts around how do you pass your faith from yourself to your kids? Like, what does that look like?
Well, I think it first starts with having an authentic your faith yourself. Getting rid of, hey, we're going to go to church. Why are we going to church? Well, because my parents went to church and that's what we do as a family. Well, yeah, you go to church for because you're training your kids up in the Lord and you're part of a community, and it's the place where they're going to get community and they're going to get friends and they're going to understand what it means to walk with the Lord in the place of context of family and seeing a bunch of other people around who are walking with the Lord, all of their friends. But I think it starts with dads having an authentic relationship with the Lord, with God, on their own first, and then translating it. I think I was really privileged, and very grateful. My dad is actually a really amazing role model. And I feel so fortunate because we grow up in such a fatherless generation, and I'm Gen X. I think you're Gen X as well. And, it's only gotten worse, I think. But I'm so grateful. My dad really modeled what it meant to, um, he did all the spiritual disciplines. He woke up in the morning. I would wake up, get ready for school. He would be in his Bible. He would be praying. He has a prayer journal that he has 30 years of prayer journals that he would pray for the family every single day. So I I watched him do the spiritual disciplines, but also my dad is a minister. He never forced me into it. He allowed me to have my own faith, to have my own walk. He was there for me in the mistakes. He was there for me in the to celebrate my victories, and so really in that way modeling Christ and modeling the father heart of God, rather than just being a religious dad, so I, I think I'm really fortunate. I feel very fortunate that I grew up with such amazing parents who modeled that for me.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, it's huge. That's the thing is like, can we do that? Are we doing that for our own kids right now? I asked myself this question the other day because I've been bringing up these articles to the kids because it's like, I can see the 20s are coming. And so there's this guy who's got some interesting articles, Jeremy Pryor, on like like faith and multi-generational successful families. So I've been having these conversations with the family around this. And I asked myself this question, like, is my marriage, would my kids on a daily basis, if they were asked, like, do you want what mom and dad have? Would they say yes or no? And because in some days I'm like, hey, marriage is really important, you guys. You really want to wait for your spouse and dad's praying for your spouse and all this stuff. But then if they were asked, at the end of every day, hey, would you want what your parents have? Would they say yes or no? And I'm afraid that there are some days that the answer would be like, nah, like I'm good. So that's just comes back to the modeling thing is if I really think that marriage is so important, am I modeling that to my kids? Like, are they seeing a beautiful marriage, And there are days they walk in and Sarah and I are dancing in the kitchen while she's making dinner. And then there's days they walk in and we're not talking to each other while she's making dinner, which I'm not saying, I'm not saying that's necessarily the worst thing, right? Like that's real. But anyways, that's the thought that I had.
Ideally, family is where you don't feel like you have to perform. So, like in my marriage, I don't want to perform for my kids. Like, it's good for my kids to see us fight every once in a while, but it's also good for them to see us make up, and it's good for them to see a dad veg on the TV every once in a while, but it's also good for them to see dad reading his Bible. And it's good for they need to see all of that, and in the context of everything, then it's, oh, dad's not performing, he's just real, this is just his real life, because then it teaches them not to perform. They don't need to perform for anybody. They can just be secure in themselves, be secure in their walk with the Lord, be secure in who God has made them to be, and then they can walk through life without the mask you know
Yeah, I mean, dude, that's huge. I feel like so much of my life is a bit performance, right? And so sometimes I put this pressure on the family of like, every minute counts, which is true, but also are you living a life that is full of joy, like the fruits of the spirit, joy, love, peace, patience, kindness. So you've talked about it a couple times. Train the kids in the way of the Lord. So like if you were going to take me hunting and I'd never been, there would be a few key things that you would want me to know if you were going to train me, right? So if you were to say three things that you're going to train your kids in while they're in your home, okay, we've got the modeling piece. You talked a bit about spiritual disciplines. What are those three components that you would bring up as far as, okay, these are three things I would train them in if I'm talking about train them in the Lord? So that should be super easy. You shouldn't feel on the spot at all.
Three things right now, the most important thing in your entire life. Give me three things right now, no pressure. Okay, so I'm just going to talk off the top of my head, no particular order, whatever comes to my mind. I think stability. Stability is one, because in our world right now, everything is unstable. And I've been having this talk with my son Zane. He's 19 years old. He's living in Los Angeles. He's working in a recording studio, and I'm not allowed to say who he's working with because he signed a bunch of NDAs. So, but he's in the music industry, and it is a chaotic mess of. But he's a believer. He's trying to follow the Lord. He feels like he has a calling from God to be a light in the darkness in this industry. But his world is chaos. And so I'm always trying to tell Zane, your anchor, your gravity, your plumb line needs to be when you come home and God is just always waiting for you. He's there. Song of Solomon says, with just one glance of our eye, his heart is moved. You don't need to be perfect. You can make mistakes, but you got to know that your security in God is there, where he's your anchor. And so I think in a family context, we try and create stability in a family context. I try and create stability as a father. I've made a lot of choices to choose my family first for the sake of stability. Maybe I'm not going to do this trip because my teenagers need my stability right now. Maybe I'm going to choose my family, especially teenagers. They need to be a stable environment. Um, okay, so stability, I would say, is one. Creating a safe environment, that goes with stability. Um, Authenticity. I think I touched on this already. It's God doesn't want us to perform. He's John 4:24 is one of my favorite verses, where Jesus is talking to the woman at the well, and he says the true worshipers will worship in spirit and truth. And that word truth is the word aletheus in the Greek, and it means truth in the sense of reality, but it also means the truth of who you are. So it's connected with the word hypokritos, which is, in the Greek plays. What they would do is the hypocrite they would put a mask on, and then they would change the mask to become a different character. And so what Jesus is saying is, take off the mask. The true worshipers who worship me will worship me in spirit, but also without a mask, without performance. So I want to teach my kids that, yeah, mom and dad are here for you when you mess up. Mom and dad are here for you in the victories. Mom and dad are here for you in every in between. We're going to get mad at each other. We're going to laugh at each other. We're going to, all of that. And why? Because that's how God is with us, so we want to model that. And then third would be just off the top of my head. I don't know if this is the top three. I've been learning recently what it means to fight for my kids. I'm a kind of chill individual, like pretty much. My kids have never really heard me yell. I'm not really a yeller, but recently, I think maybe as my girls have become teenagers, I've realized there's been a few mistakes and a few relationships. And I think it's been healthy for my girls to see a dad stand up for what's right and be strong with them and say, no, this is wrong. This is right. And and actually not be so gray, but be black and white in certain areas, because I think maybe that comes back to stability, actually. But I think God's like that with us too sometimes. My relationship with the Lord is I'm an artist, and so I feel very free in my relationship with the Lord. But sometimes He's like, Daniel, don't do this, do this. Here's the law. And I think sometimes as fathers, we can be afraid of that. Like we don't want to be too hard, but I think in the right context, with love and with compassion and care, like we gotta set the boundaries. I think as fathers, and I think that's healthy.
Man, I couldn't agree more. It's like especially when you get into these teenage years, it's easy to see how like a dad, I could just default to just go get involved at work and just kind of let whatever happens at home. Cause it's heavy, dude. It gets heavy. Uh, and it's funny, not funny. I think in some ways, like right now, we we are black and white about stuff that doesn't matter. And then we're like loosey goosey on the stuff that really freaking matters. And in my heart and soul, I'm like, dude, this is very black and white. Like this is very black and white, but nobody wants to say it. Nobody wants to say it. Like, whatever. So I think that as dads, it's like, man, I have affirmation right now. Like I'm the two of them that I read in the morning. I'm the CEO of this company, which is not this like arrogant thing. It's just like, shit, this is my responsibility. And the other one is I will not surrender my responsibility to lead this home. And I just think so many dads are like, I lost the battle on the eyelashes. I lost the battle on the tube tops. I lost the battle on the bathing suits.
Bro, we live in Hawaii. What about the bathing suits?
Dude, shoot me in the face. And it's hard. You gotta navigate it, because it's like I don't want to push them so hard that they're just changing in the car without me knowing. Right. I mean, to some level, like teenagers are going to be teenagers. So I don't want to control it. It's a dance, bro. It's a dance. So let me just reiterate what I hear about like the role of the father and then the training in the Lord. We talk a lot about don't perform. I love that, which is very much authentic. And you said this word, you kind of went down the Greek pathway and came to this word reality. And I think that as dads, it's so important that we speak life into our kids, because they don't always know what reality is. And so like, if I can say, hey, I see this in you, right? Like that's the blessing. The blessing is I see you and I'm going to speak it into your life for forever.
Yeah, for sure.
And then the fighting for the kids, I think, is really important. And I think what I'm hearing from you is like, fight for what's right and wrong, even when your kids are living in this like social media world. Oh, dad, you can't say it about them. Dad, you can't. No, dad, that, it's like, hang on. Like, I don't want to be a bigot asshole, but I do need to to teach my kids that there's reality and truth. It's tough.
So I have the privilege of having two kids that are out of the house. And so if there's any young dads listening, it's like I've been there, and you have these wrestles, right? And what I've actually come to, and maybe this is just my personality, because I'm not a very heavy-handed father. That's not who I am. I'm, like I told you, I'm an artist as my personality. I'm a free, I set the parameters, but there's a lot of freedom in those parameters. So maybe this is just for me. If I would have done it over again, I would have been harder, like on the cell phone. Let's just dive into the cell phone. I should have, when my kids were teenagers, I think I waited as long as I could to give my boys cell phones. I tried, but then they're begging me and they're begging me and they just beat you down.
Yes, they wear you down.
And then you end up feeling like I'm a horrible father if they don't get a cell phone. And oh my gosh, and am I preparing them for the real world? And da, da, da. And and now with my girls, we are a lot more strict because we saw how evil that device can be and how manipulative and how these tech companies, they do not want the best for your kids. And I for some reason it took me years to understand that. And I don't know why. It took me so many years to understand these tech companies, these iPhones don't care about your kids. And so like we force our 14-year-old, we command our 14-year-old that she has to have her cell phone out of the bedroom when she goes to bed at a certain time in the night. And I wish I would have done that with all my kids. So there's certain areas where it's like you look back and you're like, man, I should have been more black and white with that. With what is reality, to your point.
Yeah, it's tough. And so dads, it's like we want to pass what we can, but there's, going to be things that you go, I should have, wish I would have, could have, but do what you can with what you got right now. Um, okay. I typically ask, what's something that you appreciate about your dad and what's something that you wish would have been different? You said a lot of great things about your father. Is there anything that you would have had him do differently? And again, this question, it's not so much like, oh, I wish my dad wouldn't have X, Y, or Z because it's shaped who you are, but it's to bring reality to you, me, and every dad out there that when our kids are 46, they're going to have an opinion about us, right? So I want dads to be thinking about what would my kids say in 30 years? So with that, what's something you wish your dad would have done differently?
I think the only thing that, I've talked to my dad about this before. So I grew up very different than my dad. So my dad is a type A, woke up this exact same time every morning, 4:30 in the morning, had his quiet time, a very regimented individual. And so I saw a lot of value in that growing up. Like I was really blessed by that. There was a lot of stability there. But I was made different. Like I said, I'm a musician. I'm a artist. I love to explore. I'm fascinated by wonder. And my dad was always telling me, you got to have your spiritual disciplines. You got to have your spiritual disciplines. Got to have your spiritual disciplines, which is good. But it was also not recognizing that I was made different. My mom was somebody that I really turned to for deep conversations and like really long life conversations. My dad was more, Dad, I need an answer. And I think, if he would have just recognized that I'm not him, that would have really helped me along the path of becoming myself a lot quicker.
Man, that's insightful and super powerful for every dad, especially with your sons, to go, my kid is not me and the way that I do things. It's funny because it's the way I do things. So I think they're the best because that's why I do them the way I do them, right? But creating space to see what works best for your kid. So that's super helpful for me, especially as I pulled Brody from school and I'm doing 2 years of homeschool with him. So finding that balance of like, I don't need to make another version of Ned. The world doesn't need that, but I do want to help pass what I do know, but give him space to find himself. So that's a huge nugget for me.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing that I've tried to do, like, is to recognize that in my kids. I think because I recognized that early on that this was something that I didn't want to pass on. And so, like with all of my kids, I've tried to just find one thing that I can connect with them on specific. And it might mean that I need to learn something. It might mean that it's a natural thing. Like my oldest son, he was really into football, and I never played football. So I had to learn. I did play sports. I played baseball and other things, but I had no clue about football culture. And so I had to learn, and I was at football practice, and I was like, and it was awkward for me because I don't really know what's going on here. But then we also had hunting, and so we connected on that level. And then um, my second son, he does music, and so I do music, so we connect on that level. That's at least one connection point we can have. my oldest daughter is really artistic, and so I remember one time I went and I grabbed art supplies from Ace Hardware, and we went on the beach and we like painted together on the beach. And this was me trying to learn something that she's into, or and my youngest daughter's into soccer, and I never played soccer, so I'm trying to learn soccer and teach her drills and connect with her on that side of things. She's 14, so she's still kind of growing into herself. We'll see where that develops. But yeah, trying to meet my kids where they're at rather than force them to be where I'm at, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally. Totally. And then, yeah, letting them see your own wrestling and walk with God, right? Because when we say it's like my walk with God, it's like, I don't have this all figured out, but I want you to see who I am on this journey. So, with that in mind, what's something that you are stuck in your ways on the last 10, 15 years? And as you've had, you're married for 25 years, so you definitely got to die to yourself in areas. You got kids, you got to die to yourself in areas. So, can you think of an area where it's like, this is how Daniel living solo in a van down by the river would do life? But now that I've got all these humans God entrusted to me, I've had to shift either a belief or a feeling or a way that I would do life for the sake of the family.
For the sake of the family. I think that first point that I said, the stability, I'm a very free individual. So like for the first 15 years of our marriage, I was on the road half of the year. So I was traveling, playing music, teaching. We were missionaries for 20 years, traveling all around. I've been to like 56 nations, and I had a real vision for the nations, for going out there and doing stuff. And I was doing conferences, and I was doing festivals, and I was doing teaching in schools and doing different things. And I really had a wrestle when my kids became okay. So when your kids are younger, like my two boys grew up in tour vans, kind of, and traveled all around and did a bunch of stuff. And then as my, and that's fine when they're young. You can just drag the kids around. And I actually encourage families, when your kids are young, travel, do the stuff, because don't get tied down to kindergarten. Like that's when you should be doing this stuff. It's when they're teenagers is when they need the stability. And so I really had to change my entire focus of life when my kids became teenagers. And that was a very purposeful decision to be more stable here in Kona. And I think now that two of my kids are out, I think that I'm so grateful for the Lord for telling me to do that. Because if I would have been stuck in my ways, no, this is my life. I travel. This is what I do. And you guys just need to get over it. This is what dad does. I'm still in my calling. I'm still doing what God is telling me to do. I just had to pivot for the sake of my family, for the sake of stability for my kids. And but that was hard, man. That was not easy. Of like, oh yeah, just gonna do this new life now. It's ripping and tearing, because you're surrendering, and yeah, and you feel like you're giving up yourself, but what you're gaining is so much better, so much more.
Yeah, I mean, dude, that's huge. And I think it's easy to point the finger at like a pastor or a missionary, but just the same as the guy who has his career, or the business owner who's doing the same thing, like putting all the energy into this thing because, same statement, I'm the CEO of this family. We're not saying that in the sense of like it's all about you. It's not about you. So yeah, dude, beautiful, super hard. And I think the other nugget is like, if we could tell young dads, go do a lot of this stuff when your kids are little, go the travel, the running around. The stability part truly is those high school years. It's same. Like I've had to quit some things the last year because it's like I can't be away from these kids for too long, or leave them with just their mom. They will ruin. Yeah.
And do the adventures with your kids when they're young. Like I meet a lot of young families right now, and they're like, "Oh, we can't do this whatever because my 5-year-old needs his whatever." And I'm like, "No, that's when you travel. That's when you take the child and do adventures together, and go camping, and get on a plane and go, and like." When my kids were little, all you're doing is carrying them around. Like we used to tour, and I would be on stage, and my wife would have my son in a front pack with headphones on and just bouncing, and then we get in the van and we go to the next venue, and it, it's great when they're little. It's so I get confused when I hear young families and they're like, "Oh, no, 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 we can't travel anymore. We can't have adventures anymore because we have kids."
Well, I think it's because we're in a culture that just coddles our kids, right? Like my kid has to have this, like, yeah, we don't need to do all that. The kids can get on a plane, they can sit in a car. You just got to teach them to do so. Okay, I want to shift into this message you taught a few weeks ago, months ago at this point. Okay, so you shared some stories. If you want to share a story, you can, or you can just kind of dive into this, but it was all mercy. So here's the deal, like as fathers, there are moments we need to give mercy to our kids. And your message had two parts. It was like mercy given to humility produces life, and mercy given to pride produces enabling. So, however you want to expand upon it, I just think like maybe define mercy in the context of being a father, and then talk about these two ways, because like, dude, you could have your one son does it this way and you're going to have to respond this way, and then your son does your other son does the exact same thing, but you need to respond in another way. And I think that's an important thing for fathers to know is it's not when X happens I show up with Y. No, I got to go into my quiver of responses and know how to show up to this situation.
Yeah, thank you. So grace is defined as getting what you don't deserve. So we get favor, the favor that we don't deserve. God is smiling at us, and we don't deserve that. So my kids, they deserve a smile even when they don't deserve. They get a smile even when they don't deserve it. Okay, that's grace. Mercy is not getting what you deserve. So it's you deserve punishment right now, but I'm going to give you mercy. You deserve the consequences of your sin is this, but I'm going to give you mercy. So it's not getting what you deserve. I'll tell the story just for your audience so you can kind of get a context of my message. But where that concept came about was I was leading a school of worship at University of the Nations, and I had two girls who came to me. And again, this is a worship school, so I'm training these students to be leaders, to be worship leaders, to be ministers. So there's a higher bar here. And they came to me, and in short, they said, "We went to Honolulu, we messed up, we got drunk at a wedding, we want to repent." And so my heart as a leader is with grace. I'm going to smile even though they don't deserve it. But I want to give mercy because that is the heart of God. I want to not give them what they do deserve. What they deserve is to get kicked out of the school because I'm training leaders. And so I said, "Girls, thank you so much for approaching me. I really appreciate this. Thank you for your honesty. You didn't need to come to me. And so I'm going to give you mercy." And, "Oh, thank you so much." Okay. And so we had this really great moment. We hugged it out. And then I got a call the next day from uh, the Youth with a Mission base leader. And Youth with a Mission is a missionary training organization for your audience in Honolulu, which is where I grew up. And he called me and he said, "Daniel, did those girls come and talk to you?" I said, "Yeah." "Did they tell you what they did here in Honolulu?" I said, "Yeah, they said they got drunk at a wedding." "Is that all they said?" "Yeah." "Whoa, that's not the whole story." And then he tells me the whole story about how they did go to a wedding. They brought boys back to the missionary training base, and then they were partying on the YWAM base, and he smelled weed. He smelled marijuana coming from somewhere on the missionary training base, and so he just followed his nose, and then he caught these girls red-handed. So I called the girl into my office the next day, and I said, "Is there anything else you want to tell me?" And I always joke, I'm like, if a dad or an authority figure or a boss ever asks you, "Is there anything else you want to tell me?" You just know they know the whole story. So I They're like, no, they're looking at me with big doe eyes, girl doe eyes. And they're like, no, there's nothing else. There's nothing else. No, we told you everything. And I'm like, girls, I grew up in Honolulu. You don't think that YWAM base leader is not going to call me and tell me what you did? Like, this is a big deal. So I was so torn. I was like, I'm just going to kick him out of the school. This is ridiculous. So, but my leader at the time is actually my father. He's the dean of the College of Christian Ministries at University of the Nations. So I told my dad, I said, Dad, I need you to take your dad hat off and I need you to put your leader hat on. Okay. And me and my dad do this because we worked together for a long time. It's a good tip. If you're ever working with your dad, it's like, Dad, can you take your dad hat off? I need you to put your boss hat on right now. And me and my dad have this interaction that we do, and it works really well. So he puts his leader hat on. And when he puts his leader hat on, I know that he's going to be more blunt. He's not going to care about my feelings at that time as a son. He's going to tell me, do this, don't do this as a leader. And I appreciate that. So I said, here's the situation. What do you think I should do? And he said, oh, man, if it was me, I'd just kick those girls out of the school. But here's the principle. And he's the one who gave me the principle, which is mercy given to humility produces life. Repentance that leads to life. Mercy given to pride produces enabling, which then leads to death. And he explained to me, like, that's the principle in the Old Testament, that God gives mercy to the Israelites over and over and over as they go after idols, and they turn their back on the Lord and they forget what he's done for him. And he gives mercy, mercy, mercy. And then it comes to a point where the heart of God is like, I want to love you. And actually, the most loving thing for me to do right now is to show justice, is not to give mercy. And so that's when armies would invade, and then that would lead to repentance, and then God would come again. And so that's the principle. The principle is that, and I like talking about fathering, that's what I'm always looking for. And I tell my kids that. I'm like, guys, give me a drop of humility here. I want to show mercy, but you got to give me a drop of humility, because I cannot show you mercy, because it's not the most loving thing for me to do in this situation, because it's all about love. How do we, I want my kids to thrive. I want them to succeed. And sometimes justice, discipline is the best thing, the most loving thing to do, not mercy.
Man, dads, this is tough, but if you can lock in this concept, and then also, because I just had a conversation with one of my daughters the other day, and I can see her sitting at the counter. She's like, this isn't how you did it with this kid when they were 16. And finding the right words to say, yeah, but you're a very different kid. So the reason why they were allowed this or allowed that was because there wasn't pride. There wasn't pride in them in this particular area. And as a father, man, we have to not be so stressed and so busy that we don't have the capacity to pause and really check in with our mind, heart, soul, spirit, whatever you want to call it, and go, what's the best thing for this kid? Am I spending enough time around this place to know what's the best thing for this kid? And then in this moment, does this kid need justice or mercy? And I think, like you just said, clearly your kid's probably seen the face you just made when you're like, please just give me a little humility, right? Like, they know what it is you're looking for. So it's not a secret, and they know in their heart whether they're full of crap or not, right? So dads, when you give mercy to a kid who is truly repentant, sorry, wants to turn in their ways, it produces life and growth in them. When you don't want to deal with it, it's 8 o'clock on a Friday and you're tired, and you give mercy to the prideful kid, that's just showing them that, one, you don't care enough, and that it's just enabling them to suck still. And our goal is to help them to not.
That's a great point, though, because that's not mercy. Mercy is always intentional. So that would be acquiescing.
But yeah, we all, yeah.
And I've done that a lot. I've done that. Like I don't want to deal with this. I want to go to bed. I'm exhausted. That is not showing mercy. That is acquiescing, and mercy is always intentional. Mercy is always given because you are confident that it's going to produce a positive outcome. And you have to So mercy is also not just forgive and forget, like it never. Mercy needs to be walked through. So my oldest son went through a trial a few years ago, and it broke him, and it broke me, and it broke our family. But we gave him mercy. But the mercy, what mercy looked like was, you're going to meet with mom and dad every night, and we're going to talk, and we're going to pray together, and we're going to with um so mercy not all the time is hands off. Sometimes mercy looks like, I'm actually more hands on right now. I'm going to be more intentional with you right now in order to see the mercy walked into something like a positive outcome, rather than just, I'm tired, I need to go to bed, which I have done more times than you can.
We all get there without a doubt, but I think I what I like is you said a word, mercy is like, I'm going to give mercy if I'm confident that it's going to lead to life, right? And I think dads sometimes, I mean, look at Jesus's life. Like, Jesus went and just created quiet time for himself and it's like to think through things. It's almost funny. Like, I like watching The Chosen, because you see Jesus like with these guys, and then he'll go off by himself, and he's just like shaking his head like, dude, I need help. I need help with these people. And I think that should be similar, as fathers. We're obviously not Jesus, but it's like, God, I am desperate for your help, and then here's what my kids are going through. What can I do? How can I show up for them when I myself feel like I freaking need help a lot of the time too? And so sometimes I think dads, you can tell your kids, hey, I need to go, I need a day on this, and then I'll come back to you, versus like making a decision in that moment because we just want to move on.
That's good. Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, a lot of times it's best to just say, I'm tired right now, I can't deal with this, but we're going to talk about it tomorrow.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. All right, dads, mercy. Man, you dads, we have a big responsibility. So that's a good nugget to be thinking about. It requires a lot from you, but it's the good stuff. Like when you look back at 85 years old over your life, these are the good things that you want to be considering. To whatever level you want to share, I wasn't going to bring it up at all, but you brought it up at the beginning. You had a health scare this year, and 46 is young. To what level has that shaped your view of your life, your family, your most important relationships?
Yeah, so in short, I'll be very quick. I had an accident in Indonesia. I was on a surf trip. I was on vacation, and I got sick, hit my head, had a traumatic brain injury, and I had to get medevaced home from Indonesia. Couldn't get out of bed for 2 months. Every time I stood up, I would passed out in front of my kids. Tons of questions around what was going on. Still didn't know what was going on. Was I having a heart attack? Did I have a brain aneurysm? What is going on? Did tests, flew to Honolulu. We live on the Big Island, and so you have to fly to Honolulu to get some more tests. Still dealing with it. Now I feel a lot better. My body is fully recovered, thank God. But I'm still dealing with traumatic brain injury and a lot of the anxiety that comes with that, panic attacks that come with that, brain fog, mental clarity, and so I'm in the process of healing, which is great. My church has been amazing, and the community has been amazing. My family has been great. My wife is a saint, taking care of me. Um, and I think the thing that I'm learning is, when it comes to that authenticity, it's how to be weak around your kids. And I noticed it. So my oldest son lives in Nepal as a missionary, and for Christmas, so my accident was in November, and my family surprised me by flying in my son from Nepal for Christmas, and I didn't know he was coming. But in December, I couldn't get out of bed, and I do remember I was laying on the couch, and my oldest son walked in, and I just start crying because it was such a surprise to me, but it was also so good to see his face. But to be honest, there was a little bit in me that was like, I don't want him to see me like this. And the reason why is because I saw his face when he saw me sick. I saw his face that just kind of like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen dad weak before. Because I'm a hunter. Me and my oldest son, that's what we did. Football practice, hunting. We would go hike 10 miles and strap a sheep or a pig to our backs and hike 10 miles off the mountain. That's who he knows me to be. And then when I've lost a bunch of weight, I'm lying in bed, that was really difficult. It was difficult for him, but it was also difficult for me because as a dad, you want to be strong. So I think this year's journey for me is embracing weakness. And I gave a sermon at church called The Power of Weakness, which is all true, and it was really good, and I'm trying to live it out now.
One of those, let me share my wrestle with you. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great sermon that I'm now trying to live out because I know it's truth, not because I have the truth or I live it out every day. I think, like I passed out in front of my girls a couple times. And so I can see the look on their face that they're scared that, and every once in a while, my daughter will say, I'll go surfing and she'll be like, are you going to be okay, Dad? Who are you going with? And that's them worrying about me. And the place where I'm at right now with that is I'm just trying to embrace it. I'm trying to embrace the suffering servant of Jesus. I'm trying to embrace that aspect, not the victorious Jesus, the suffering servant Jesus, the weak Jesus, like you said, I gotta go, I gotta be alone, Jesus, because so I think as dads, we always want to be strong. We always want to be the victor. We want to hold the family together. But what do you do when you can't hold the family together and you're just trusting God that He's going to hold the family together? I think that's been this year for me, for sure, for sure.
I mean, horrible, horrible. And then at the same time, like, I'm sure it'll hopefully feel like a gift at some point. Not that I think God causes things, but I think He can use all things for good. I think the thing that it opens up for me as you share it is it's like, on one hand, as Christian fathers, we're like, my job's to point my kids to the Lord, right? We say that. But we also want to be like, I could bench press, I could hunt, I could shoot you, I could fight that kid, whatever it is. I still want to be this guy. And our kids and our sons and daughters need that. Our wives need that. But at the end of the day, it's like we are also just kids with them. We're just weak little kids with them, So it's interesting as a father, you kind of have to be like, I am the freaking lion in this house, and I am also like a sheep too. I just, to use like a different analogy, because we live in such a weird masculine moment of like lions, not sheep, and I'm tough and this, that, and the other. Yet like I can go to Safeway and buy anything I want and it's easy. And like I really don't have a hard life, like, as far as Americans go for the most part. So I do think that this moment, and you're talking about embracing weak, is not that we want to be passive weaklings, but we also don't want to lean on our own strength. And I guess that's like probably what you're realizing in this is like this situation. It's like, I am not the king of the universe. My kids truly need God.
Yeah, let me define weakness. Weakness is not self-pity. So when I'm defining weakness of spirit, I'm doing the best I can. I okay, so I love to have a beer at a barbecue. I haven't had a single drop of alcohol this year because why? Because traumatic brain injuries, that's not good. It's going to fog me up. Exactly. It's not going to have the healing process. I haven't had any caffeine this entire year because the caffeine was giving me anxiety attacks because of the traumatic brain injury. I am working out every morning. I'm in one of the best shapes of my life because I was waking up every morning and having adrenaline rushes from the PTSD from my accident, which I got diagnosed with. And so every morning I'm working out. Weakness is not self pity, meaning I'm weak. Guys, just get over it. This is a weak season for me. You're just going to have to deal with dad. No, dad's working hard. Dad is still fighting. He's fighting for health. He's fighting for the family. He's fighting, but sometimes you're going to walk in and dad's going to be on the couch watching TV because he can't do anything. So I'm embracing the weakness, but I'm also fighting for health, if that makes sense.
Okay. In the moment where it's like, you're going to give yourself grace, mercy to lay on the couch. What is the driver to then go, okay, I've been here long enough. I need to go put some work in now. So, what's that driver? What's that motivator?
The driver, the motivator. I mean, I still got a fire in me that I want to do something with my life. I mean, for sure, it's like, I want to be there for my family. I want to hunt with my boys again. I want to travel to LA to do what my son is. I want my daughter is going to Nashville. Uh, I I I want to travel. I want to do all this stuff with the kids. Me and my wife, we love to travel together. That's one of our favorite things to do is just to get on a plane with no kids and go by ourselves. We're our best friends. We love traveling together. So I think there's a drive to live life. Depression is a real thing too. And there's a lot of dudes here that's listening to this probably who deal with depression on a daily basis where you just can't get out of bed. And with a traumatic brain injury, that comes with the territory where I just can't get out of bed I can't. I can't. I have really good people around me. My wife is amazing. My kids are amazing. So I think because I have good people around me, I have good community. I can't wallow in that place for too long. I'm also a leader in the community too here. I can't go to Costco without somebody saying, "Daniel, how you doing? How I heard about your accident." So there is that motivation too of you're a leader too. And yeah, I don't know. You do what you can do that day.
Yeah. And I think you said this earlier in the conversation. I'm doing the best that I can with what I've got. And I think dads, you really got to be honest with yourself because you're the only one. Like you're going to look at yourself in the mirror. Are you doing the best you can for yourself and for your family right now with what you got? And if with what you got isn't working, then maybe you need to shift some things around and go gain skills or community or relationships that are going to help you offer your family what you want to offer. I know we're coming up on our time here, but I just want to ask a couple of last questions. You made a comment that your wife is your best friend. You guys been married 10 years, 25 years. Yep, 25. What would you say to guys who are at that like 10, 15-year mark or it doesn't even matter, like how do you make your wife your best friend? I mean, why is that important? Why does it matter? And obviously, I'm not, got to spend 10 minutes on it, but it's so rare these days. And man, it is the best gift you can give your kids, in my opinion, is like marriage. I think marriage is so important. So, how are you able to say that? What would you say to dudes?
Okay, so let me back up. I got married at 20 years old, 21. Sorry, she was 20, I was 21. And the Daniel now is not the Daniel of 25 years ago. Totally, and she's not the same person either. What I think we were able to do, praise God, was grow with each other. So rather than why can't you be this or her trying to change me, always growing with one another, allowing there to be slight changes, growing, like being on the journey with one another and enjoying one another in life, in the ups and the downs. And as cliche as it sounds, the only way to do that is when Christ is the center of your household. I'm sorry, because both of us are submitted to the same truth. We're both submitted to the same reality. And so when both of us are submitted to the same reality, then our realities can be together on the same path. But what I see a lot of times happen in marriages is it's like, okay, I'm 46, we're about the same age. I am seeing so many of my friends in this is the age when marriages fall apart. And why is this the age? Because the reality of their marriage was taking care of kids for 20 years. And so when the kids leave the house, which is around our age, a little older, but then it's like, well, what do we have? Our entire marriage was based upon raising these kids and our careers. And now we're stuck with each other and there's no buffer zone, which is the kid taking the soccer practice and the school play or whatever. And the mission, and you forget to be friends along the way. I'm so grateful that the Lord was the center of our household, and then we just allowed each other to grow with one another and adventure with one another and allow each other to become the people who we are today together, not separately.
So good. So good. Yeah, I mean, my parents are very different from each other, but they've been married 42 years. And I always tell them it's the greatest gift you guys gave me, showing me this is possible.
Oh, you know my wife. We're totally opposites. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, she could probably do more burpees than you right now, huh? Yeah, dude, she's a gangster at working out. um, dude, this has been incredible. Before we go, if you were to speak a blessing over the fathers that are listening right now, a blessing is this speaking life into somebody. What is the life you would speak into the fathers that are listening to this right now?
I would say, may God fill you with hope every single day, strength every single day, and give you the courage to be authentic and the courage to train your kids up in the Lord and not hold back and show them what it means to have a relationship with Jesus through your relationship with Jesus. Because no matter what they do in life, if they are in ministry or if they're CEOs of companies one day, that is going to be their stability. That is going to be their anchor, is their walk with the Lord. Whether you're a billionaire or you've given up everything for the Lord on the mission field, it doesn't matter. That will still be your relationship with God. The reality of what this world is through a biblical perspective and through knowing Christ, and have the courage to do that, because it takes a lot of courage to be authentic, to be real, and to train your kids up in the way they should go.
Daniel, thank you so much for your authenticity today. Thank you for sharing your life with us, your family, your stories. I just much blessing, love to you and your family, and I look forward to running into you at Costco. I just love my time with Daniel. It just felt like we were just vibing on fatherhood, learning, growing from each other. And I just want to encourage you, like, go out to coffee or lunch or have some dudes over to your house that are fathers and just bring some questions around fatherhood and marriage. And I think you will find fruit from that conversation. I started a group at my house with just a few dads and their sons. We're sitting around the fire once a month. It's hard. It's hard to make it happen. You got to fight for it because time just drifts away. But I encourage you, create conversations like this where you are not just listening, but you are engaging in these. For my conversation with Daniel, as I look at my notes right here, it's like, okay, crack down on the cell phone. Okay, other dads are doing it. Okay, other dads want to do it too. So I'm not alone. I'm not the crazy person in this house when I'm cracking down on the cell phone. I know I got other brothers out there who are doing it too. The conversation around mercy. Okay, I'm locking this in my file cabinet in my head so that when it's Friday night at 8 o'clock and I'm tired and this situation's happening and I'm kind of thinking like, I just been trying to get to my Netflix show, or I've been trying to get to getting in bed, or whatever it is you're trying to get to, that you have this file cabinet of like, okay, this is how I want to show up in this situation. This is what I'm going to say. This is the type of father I want to be. So mercy, super, super powerful. I love the part about your home shouldn't be a place of performance. Daniel talking about his marriage, 25 years married, and talking about that best friend, right? Best friends irritate each other. Best friends laugh together. Best friends sit in the same room together and don't even have to say anything. They're just together. So we shouldn't be performing. Our marriage shouldn't be a performance. Our kids shouldn't be performing. So I love that. It's not about performance, that the family, the home should be that stable place that isn't chaotic, where I can just come and take my shoes off and just be. Okay. Incredible. If these conversations are helpful, share them with a friend, shoot a text. Hey, bro, you're a great dad. I just heard this podcast. I thought you might like it. Also, write a review. It helps spread the word that fatherhood matters. Thank you to all you dads out there listening to Fatherhood Field Notes podcast. What you do matters. Don't be like everybody else. Be yourself. That is who your kids, spouse, and community needs. This is your guide, Ned Schaut. Together, let's rebel against the view that fatherhood has little impact, and let's create lives engaged in mastering the craft of fatherhood. I look forward to hanging out with you next time. One last thought is, if there's anything that really stuck out to you, is like, I want to remember that, go write it on your mirror. Create an affirmation around this for the time being. Like, I am the father who shows up with mercy. I am the father who gives mercy when I see humility. Whatever it is that resonated with you, start speaking that over yourself. Like, you have the opportunity to speak life into yourself. That's all an affirmation is. And speak those same things into your kids. Look forward to hanging out with you next time.